Take South Africa. We have a small white population that projects European culture, or what we learned from Europe.
And oppressed millions of black people.
No.
For decades.
How do you oppress? We gave them work, we fed them.
Okay, let me cook. Because this one, we need to prep the pot, wash the rice, slice the onions, because this commentary is about to cook like jollof rice on firewood. When I was a child, I remember Apartheid. I remember the songs, Free Mandela. We sang it in schools. We sang it at home. We had it on radio, on TV. Even as a child, we knew South Africa was burning. We didn't understand, the politics at the time, but we knew the word apartheid was really something horrible. It meant injustice. It meant something was deeply wrong with that country. But the thing is that we as Nigerians, we never felt the weight of it like, the way South Africans did. But we respected the struggle, We supported with what we could. And then this week, this news entered my feed.
South Africa. We have a small white population that projects European culture, or what we learned from Europe.
And oppressed millions of black people.
No.
For decades.
How do you oppress? We gave them work, we fed them. They grew from a tiny little group into a massive group. That's not oppression, that's feeding them. Do you understand? You only grow big if you get fed. You only start at 800 and become 50 million if you get fed. We fed them, for crying out loud. Enough with this nonsense.
The person you are seeing there is Elon Musk, Elon Musk's father. He was on CNN, talking about apartheid, and he said in his own word, apartheid wasn't operation because black people were fed and had jobs. And I'm like, fed? That's the bar? A whole total caste system boiled down to the ate. And honestly, this is disappointing, disgusting, and people, we really need to break it down properly. So Elon Musk said he never saw operation. Of course he didn't. How would he? He was living under the luxury of privilege. He was white, privileged, wealthy, sitting on the safe side of the fence.
You can easily say life is better for Africans in South Africa because you have never been black before yourself, and you have never known how bad it is to be black in South Africa.
Can you hold on, Chen? Can you give us some small, everyday examples of what it's like to be black in South Africa?
To be black in South Africa is that you are in restriction daily. You have to carry a pass. You are not allowed to travel late at night in the city except for white people who are God's people. And in South Africa, you are not allowed to go even into certain restaurants because they are all white.
He didn't have to see police raids. He didn't have to see forced removals. He didn't have to see past laws tearing families apart. He didn't have to see black people living in townships, practically designed to keep them poor and powerless. That's the luxury of privilege, blindness. When the system is protecting you, you don't see the brutality. You see normal life. If you have no idea about what's like being black in South Africa, here's what's like being black in South Africa.
If you think that apartheid was simply segregation, then I've got a lot to teach you. It was more than that. It was forced removals, it was banned education, and it was death squads. Apartheid wasn't just a set of racist opinions. It was a system designed to control the majority. First, classifications. Every single person in South Africa was classified. They were either white, black, coloured, or Indian. Every single black person over the age of 16 had to carry a passbook, a humiliating ID that was stamped by the police and your employer. Walk into a white city without it, you're arrested. If you've got the wrong employer stamp, you're arrested. If it expires, you are arrested. Over 100,000 people a year were arrested for these offences. They weren't criminals, and this was deliberate. Apartheid needed cheap, controllable labour, so they did everything they could to criminalise daily life. And then there was the Bantu education system. It meant that black students were taught just enough to be able to serve their white employers. In 1953, apartheid architect Hendrik Verwoerd said, "There is no place for the Bantu in the European community above certain forms of labour." And that wasn't a slip-up. That was his policy. And protest of this system was met with brutality. In 1960, in Sharpeville, 69 people were shot by police, many of them in the back. In Soweto in 1976, a group of schoolchildren protesting Afrikaans in classrooms were gunned down in broad daylight. By the 1980s, apartheid had evolved into a security state. Detention without trial, torture camps, censorship, assassinations. Government death squads like Vlakplaas hunted down anti-apartheid protesters and key members and killed them.
Let's remind ourselves here, because some people are clearly forgetting. Apartheid wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a political disagreement. It wasn't a different time. It was legal segregation, forced displacement, racial hierarchy written into law, state violence, bans on interracial relationships, passed laws restricting Black movement, economic exclusion, torture, imprisonment, and death. This wasn't vibes, so this wasn't they were fed. This was a system designed to break Black people spiritually, financially, and psychologically. And if any of you here watching this video is still confused, let me bring Trevor Noah into the chat. Let's hear what he said on a Diary of a CEO podcast.
So for anyone that doesn't know what it's like to be a child that has a white father and a Black mother growing up in apartheid South Africa, where, as it says on the front of your book, you're considered a crime because your father and mother have different skin colors. What does that environment feel like emotionally for you?
So I was lucky. I was lucky in that I think, at least on the surface, I didn't feel it. You know, because one of the most important things I've learned from my upbringing is a child's reality, for the most part, is defined and created by their parents or their caregivers. You know, so I didn't know that my world was strange. I didn't know that my mother wasn't legally allowed to have me. You know, to understand the apartheid system, I always try and break it down for people. You know, people think of like racism and they go like, oh, okay, it's racism. And I'm like, no, it's a much more insidious system that was designed to oppress people based on the color of their skin. So where America just said there's black and whites, and if you had like one drop of blood that was Black, you were Black, and it was a very simplistic system. The apartheid system was a culmination of all of the worst ideas from around the world in and around race.
He broke it down with one line. Being born to a Black mother was literally a crime.
I didn't know that my mother wasn't legally allowed to have me.
A crime. A crime to be born, not to steal, not to fight, not to hurt anyone, just to exist. Imagine your existence making somebody wanting to eradicate you. Trevor couldn't even play outside with other kids because authorities could take him away at any time. Imagine being a child and hiding your existence because the law says your skin is illegal. His family lived in a hierarchy. That wasn't emotional. It was legal. His white father was superior. Trevor, being mixed, was colored above his mother, but below his father. His mother, a Black woman, sat at the bottom of the structure.
I could be born by my mother. You know, I could be the seed of my father, but I couldn't live with him. We couldn't live with him. We couldn't live together. He couldn't live in our areas. I could, you know, technically speaking, my mother, my father, and myself weren't allowed to live in the same area. That's how granular the system was.
A whole human family broken into categories like they were ingredients in a recipe. Imagine that. People lived in fear. People died for freedom. People fought, bled, protested, and resisted. But one man gets on TV and says, well, they were fair.
Understand, because the Black population was so oppressed under apartheid.
Well, we never saw this oppression you're talking about.
You never saw it.
No, I never saw it.
Yeah, because you're white.
Oh, God. This one, it looks like mental. This is the height of it. This is historical gaslighting at its finest, reducing a whole era of brutality to a lunch break, dismissing trauma because he wasn't the one being hunted. This is why, what Elon Musk said is not just wrong. It's practically dangerous. Because comments like this, are not innocent. They are not his opinion. They are not a different perspective. They are an attempt to sanitize brutality and repackage it, as order. And every time somebody with power or privilege speaks like this, it chips away at the truth. It creates doubt. It creates confusion. It invites ignorance. And if we don't check it, if this man is not checked, they will rewrite the entire history. People will start saying, maybe apartheid wasn't that bad, Maybe colonialism helped Africans. Maybe segregation had benefits. Maybe Black people are exaggerating. This is how Operation gets rebranded and reintroduced, with smiles, PR interviews, and historical amnesia. Because let's be honest, if you benefited from a system, it's very easy to pretend you didn't see the violence happening around you. People like him had the big houses, the safety, the opportunities, the comfort, the privilege. Meanwhile, Black South Africans were literally fighting for their humanity. They were literally fighting for their existence. And so when he says, I never saw operation, what he really means is, I really didn't care. And here's this part, a lot of people don't realize. This is not just a South African story. This is a Black diaspora story. Let me tell you, everywhere Black people exist, Africa, the Caribbean, Europe, America, Latin America, we are constantly dealing with people who try to downplay the system that oppressed us. It's the same script with a different accent and, different geographical location. Even in Africa itself, some people still talk like colonialism, was a blessing because they built roads. And now we have someone saying apartheid wasn't operation because they were fed. Oh God, seriously. You see the pattern? It's not about South Africa alone. It's about how the world insists on minimizing Black pain, repackaging operation as order, and making our trauma seem negotiable. Because when they sanitize the past, they get to dodge accountability in the present. And you know the saddest part? If you push back, people are going to act confused. Not everything is about race. Oh God, seriously. But somehow, when it comes to their historical tragedies, nobody tells them at least you were fed. The minimization only comes when it comes to Black people. And that's why the conversation matters. Because we really need to remind people of the truth before the revisionists twist it into a bedtime story. When someone with influence rewrites the past, it shifts the future. When people like Elon Musk go on global media platforms and downplay apartheid, they are not just giving an opinion, they are planting seeds. Seeds of doubt, seeds of distortion, seeds of misinformation. And if nobody uproots those seeds, they grow into narratives. Narratives grow in textbooks, and textbooks shape generations. That's how history gets hijacked. Look at how some countries are already rewriting their own atrocities in school curriculum. Look at how some group of people soften slavery with cute phrases like laborers or workers. It starts small, and it starts like this. One man like Elon Musk saying it wasn't operation, they were fed. And if we don't challenge it now, let me tell you what happens in the future. In 20 years, they will be calling apartheid a disputed political era. In 40 years, they will say they were benefiting from apartheid. They were fed. In 60 years, someone will make a documentary titled Apartheid, The Untold Good Sides. Ha! Now, wow. And that is how you lose your history. Not because it wasn't documented, but because the privileged refused to tell it honestly. So let me say it here clearly. We are not debating apartheid because it was a horrible time. We are not sugarcoating racism here. We are not negotiating trauma. The truth is the truth. And some of us will stand on it loudly. We really have to call out moments like this, to hold the line, to protect the truth, to call out the gaslighting. This is not just about history. This is about humanity. Let's be real here. When you downplay apartheid, you are not just disrespecting the past. You are disrespecting the people who survived it. You are spitting on the graves of those who fought, those who were beaten, those who were jailed, those who were silenced, those who were forced out of their homes. People who were told that their skin made them less than human. You know, apartheid didn't end because it wasn't that bad. It ended because people risked their life to fight against it. And when someone like this steps on TV and tries to reduce all that suffering to a lunch plate, they were fed. It tells you exactly how privilege thinks. It wasn't brutal because it wasn't brutal to me. You see, that's why our voices matter. To say the things the mainstream won't say to you. To confront narratives like this that try to shapeshift into opinions. To expose the gaslighting. To remind the world that the truth doesn't just bend just because someone wealthy says otherwise. So let me end it, with this. If your version of history only centers your comfort, it is not history, it is propaganda. If your memory of oppression ignores the people who were oppressed, you were never looking, you didn't care because you were benefiting. And if you think apartheid wasn't oppression because people ate, like he said, I truly hope the world never judges your morality by the meals you provided. This generation is not going to be silent. We are not confused. We are not intimidated. We are not letting the truth, get washed. And that's why we are speaking. Thank you for watching. If this is your first time here, please subscribe before you go. And if you are a returning viewer, I beg, hit that button again. I take go pick you. Thank you for coming by. Stay blessed and safe. See you in the next one. Ciao.